Okay.
Um, I
Hmm.
don't know that we've had a green room like this for a while where we got a chance to kind of catch up a little more off the record on the people that were here because there's a new tribe member and she's not new, but she showed up today. Um, um, Christine. So, I don't want to butcher your last name. I'm just going to
Boucher.
turn this over to you and share what your experience was in Shasta. And then, you'll get narrative from Dave and you'll hear from Paula along the way. But I want to hear about what happened while you were there.
Great. And I just want to start. I'm Christine Boucher. It's French, but it's my married name. My maiden name is Sanachar. I'm Indian. So that's why I was like, it obviously doesn't match. But I just wanted to start out by saying the reason why I connected with Lowell is I had heard his interview on Gaia. And then I started listening to some of the podcasts, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the synchronicities are so intense that I couldn't help. But I didn't even know he did these podcasts like this in a Zoom room. And I reached out to him via email because he was talking about Andara crystals and Mount Shasta and the city of Telos. And I was like, this is all information. So my journey started, if you don't mind me starting like this, is in
Mm.
2012. I bought my very first set of crystals. I was a yoga instructor from like 2005, but I'd never bought crystals or any of that. And I was at an event and there were Andara crystals there. So my very first set of crystals was an Andara chakra set. And literally, when I was leaving, the self doubt came into my mind. I'm like, this is so dumb. Why did I just spend $200 on the crystals that look like glass? And the woman had said, go home, sleep with them under your pillow and like gaze at them regularly. So I was like, okay. So I go home really skeptical, very accountant logical. And I downloaded the idea for a 7-book series based on the chakras as soon as I had them, like the next day. And so I started writing this book, but the location was never right. So I started that let's in 2012. And then in 2019, I heard about earth chakras. And I had written basically the majority of the book, but the location was never right. And so I was like, earth chakras, what are those? So I started researching earth chakras, and the first earth chakra location is Mount Shasta, California. So I started going down the rabbit hole and doing tons and tons of research. And I was like, I have to go there. And one of my yoga teachers was actually having an event out in Mount Shasta, and it was February of 2020. And I was like, I should go. Should I go? 3 kids to get it ready for college financially. And I was kind of like, so I went to sign up at the last minute and there was no spots left. So I was like, I didn't go. And then COVID shut everything down for, and then I actually got a publishing deal in that time. I also, these Andaras kind of sparked my writing career. So I had another book going at the same time as the fictional books, a guided gratitude journal for kids. And that got published with a mid-sized publisher. And then I got a publishing offer in 2021 for this book, and we weren't traveling even then much in 2021. And so I got the offer, so I was like, okay, we'll go that route. And it did get published, it got out in the world, and then like the publisher basically took the book and said, now that's all we're going to do is put the book together and we're not going to sell it. But they took my rights. So luckily Authors Guild had advised me to have a certain amount of books they had to sell before they kept my rights forever. And I got my rights back just recently. And I was like, as soon as I got my rights back, I started writing, like building that world of Telos in the book. It was in there, but not as deep. And I was just getting more and more downloads. So I was like waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and writing and writing and writing. So I've already added 10,000 words to the book, and Adama as one of the characters, which I didn't even until after I wrote that did I realize it was a real a real thing. So I was like, I have to go to Mount Shasta. I have to go before I finish writing this book again. So I just got back on Tuesday night at 11:30. I've been a little off integrating. But I started.
That'll take a while.
I know I'm like exhausted. Asked Lowell, he's like, can we talk about your trip? And I was like, yes. And then all these things came up. I'm like, I guess I just need another day. But it was one of the friend that went with me, she said it best that we compressed time in those. It was really like we had 2 solid days to experience Mount Shasta. We didn't, by the time I flew out from I live in New Hampshire and you guys were just in Vermont. But I live in New Hampshire. So by the time I fly out to Sacramento and do the 3-hour drive from Sacramento to Shasta, it's the full day. So we
Let
had
me
four
ask
days.
this though. I want to ask you what your energy level was like while you were there on the mountain. Because
Super
it just
high.
it was it physical.
It was like I just had this. We had so much energy, like
Bingo.
so much energy to do what we did. We hiked 18 miles in 2 days. I don't hike. Like I'm like not a, I mean, I like to be physical, but like hiking, like I don't even. So we went, our first stop was at Panther Meadows, and we did lower and upper Panther Meadows. And the energy there is just incredible. And we did a meditation while we were out there on Panther Meadows on the rocky area, not near the flowers. And bees kept coming in our faces and just floating there. And then they'd fly away and then they'd float. And we did a 31-minute meditation. And the whole time, these bees just kept coming into our area, like checking us out. Like, hey, what are you doing?
They
And
must have they must have thought that you were a flower.
maybe, but
That's what the thought
it's
I
like,
just had.
yeah, it's like, yeah, they were like, who's this little flower? Can we, yeah. So it's like, but what, at one point, there were 3 of them right in my face. And I couldn't help it. I yelped because I was like really still and quiet and it didn't bother me. But when 3 of them were there, I was kind of like, maybe this isn't a good idea. And we were in the middle of nowhere by ourselves, just the 2 of us, like out there. We could hear some hikers in the mountains and they were yelling occasionally. I think they were trying to scare away bears just in case there were bears coming. And my friend and I were like, yeah, probably should have had like a bear whistle or something, just 2 women sitting out here by ourselves. But I
You know,
felt,
just don't let that creep into your field and
yeah,
you won't invite it in.
right.
End of
I
line.
felt so safe. Like I felt incredibly safe. I wasn't scared. And at one point, we were near one of those the streams were gurgling in the lower Panther Meadows where all the flowers are. And it was so loud. And I'm like, how is this noise coming from this little stream? And we were like, oh, it's probably underneath. We weren't sure, but we were just kind of like, there's something. It sounded like a full waterfall, and it was just this little tiny stream. And we found some amazing, like there's a tree. It's the upper half is gone, so it's a dead tree, but it's a swirling vortex tree. And then there was a trine tree, like 3 huge trees from the base of one. So we just spent a lot of time in that area. And we were, had Mount Shasta's view right in front of us. And we were just in in heaven. Like we spent so much time just wandering around there and taking our time. And then when we left, we went to Bunny Flat, which I know you had said go to the old ski bowl, but we just happened to be driving by and we're like, oh, we'll stop here. And I didn't even connect that was a place that you had the entryway to tell us. So we were hiking up and we heard it sounded like thousands of bees in one area. And we both looked at each other and we turned her. I know, I just like, it bums me out, but it was like, we just felt like we weren't supposed to keep going forward at that point in time. So
there's another perspective to consider.
Yeah.
When I've heard light beings in the vicinity, they sound like big hummingbirds or what you just described.
Oh, yes. It was the two of us together, and my friend was like, what's that sound? And by the way, I had little tiny pieces of Andara crystals from the woman that I had gotten it from. So I was placing the little bits. I was kind of gridding with little, leaving little um, bits of Andaras around in special PowerPoints.
Did you leave them behind?
Yes. Yeah.
That is gridding.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, there's a wonderful thing that Lady Nellie, the woman
Yeah.
whose property this had all been discovered on, that Mickey had shared with me a long time ago. Uh, I was at Mickey. I'm referring to Mickey Magic, who knows everything about there is about Andars and has had more connections of anybody alive right now with this material. Anyway, he had some big pieces remaining when I visited his complex, and he had an order for a particular color. Well, he had a big piece of it outside, so he was going to break it down. Now, first, the big piece was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And so when he took it inside and took a chisel and a hammer to it, it just like was a shot through the heart. And he
Yeah.
stopped me because he could feel what I was feeling. And he said, just a minute. Let me tell you what Nellie says. They like to be more. So when you leave them behind like that, small pieces, they like to be more. Never mind that crystal differs in this way, as you know. Every other crystal I have great regard for. They're meant to assist us to take our intent and amplify it. Quartz, and you name the crystal, it does. It's effective. Andars are different than that. They
They are.
carry consciousness. Each one of them does. And so they're a little capsule of the things that they've come, in contact with. When you hold them, you share your energy with it, just like she shares it with you. But remember, she's connected to all of her brothers and sisters, all on the planet. And that's why they've been gridded the way that they are. It's no surprise to know in where they have been, moved. Mickey has, moved them to Buddhist, places all over the planet for a long time now. That was all meant for a purpose. So the grid is being restored in the way that it was originally.
Wow.
And here's the method that was taking place. It's cool. Well, back to you.
Yeah. And I didn't even like have a plan. I just had them with me because I brought my original chakra set with me. And then I had these pieces and I'm like, and I had one that wasn't part of that chakra set and it had broken in, like it had fallen and broken. So I left the other half of that on Shasta because I just felt
Awesome.
like it needed to be there. So yeah, so the hummingbird perspective is really good. And I was just like, that night, I was like, I got the down, like go back. But we just compressed too much time. Like we should have stayed an extra day. and given us ourselves a little bit more time. We were being practical, and it's like we only had so much time. So after we went to that, we went back to our Airbnb, and in an hour or so, we went to Fairy Falls. So we did three major things in one day. I was like,
Yes,
and
you
then,
did.
yeah, like three, like we were just like, we had so much energy, and we were a little
Was
tired,
Fairy
like,
Falls last? Can I ask?
on that first day.
Yeah,
On that
that's
first,
what the hike up is. It's nothing but elevation gain.
yeah, I know. We were like, but I can't believe we did as much as we did in that one day. And I have some
That's why I
pictures.
asked about your energy level.
Yeah, it was so high. Like the fact that and I wasn't sore. I wasn't sore one bit. Like I'm like 18 miles of hiking, and I had no muscle fatigue, no pain, nothing. Like I'm 51, it's like you'd think there'd be something, but I was great. We were tired at night for sure, but so when I took pictures of the falls, and I'll send it to you, but in some of the orbs at Fairy Falls, there's a purple diamond shape inside of an orb. And it was like really, like, some of the orbs that I got in pictures are just incredible. We You'll laugh. I think I haven't been like, so like I said, I'm like, the two of us are not like major hikers, so we were going down to try to get to the actual water. And we couldn't get down there for whatever, like, we couldn't find the right path, or we found the sulfur tub. We
Mm-hmm.
saw the leftover part of the healing spa, was it, or what was there?
Yeah, a long time ago, that
Yeah,
was like a little resort.
right, with
And that
sulfur.
area down there was, one of the baths that you could make yourself down to the river with.
Yeah, so we got that. Like, we got there, and then we kept going up, 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 like completely up. And I'm not sure, was there some flooding in Shasta, or it just felt like the paths was blocked. But
No.
no.
Now, the water flow, I was there in May around
Yeah.
Mother's Day, and the
Yeah.
water flow was incredible because of so much snowpack that there had been there. The falls were amazing. And as you went up that path, you saw lots of groundwater that would cross the road in lots of places.
Yeah.
That's just the alpine water coming out in all the places it's supposed to
It
come
was,
out of.
I mean, it was incredible. Do you know what I mean? We had
Yes.
like, if you see these pictures in the orbs, it's like fairyland. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Of
for sure.
course, you're going to encounter elementals there.
Right.
That's their environment.
Right.
Yes.
So after that, we went home, we went back to our Airbnb. We were toast, and basically we were in bed by, I don't know, 9 or 10 o'clock. And then that night, I felt like a deep release of like past garbage that needed to be let go of. It was super powerful, and I wanted to go back to the ski bowl,
I,
but
I've got to I've got to interrupt. This is
yeah,
just so amazing. I've got to interrupt for just a
go ahead.
second. When you were talking about the diamond inside the orbs,
Yeah,
uh, it's just another confirmation of what sacred geometry is. It's almost like we think of the ethers or ethereal realms where spirits may glide from one realm to the next. But then we think about healing spirits. And the reason I interrupt is because, you went home or you went to your Airbnb and then you felt this amazing healing that had come over you. And that's always the first thing that happens when we are reached out to by higher entities or higher spirits who love us, is that they want to remove any of the terrestrial value systems that have caused you any kind of emotional chemistry that's not who you are. And so they help you glide right through that and get rid of it. And so, in order for you to have the next experience, they do this to all of us. They heal us in a way. Sometimes it's very big,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's just a little bit, because a lot of us are on our own path, and some of us are mostly healed or halfway healed. And when we talk about healing, we talk about it in a way that we all seem to understand what healing, being healed means. And all of us knowing what the word healing means is that we all have a collective soul, which is the great soul of humanity, of humankind, that connects us to heaven and to source. And we all have the same inner voice. We all have the same heart, and our heart speaks to us. But they go right in and they heal you of the most important things. And that would enable any of us to meet them again and to receive more information from them. So yeah, they some entities travel within a shape of sacred geometry. It helps them glide through interdimensionally. Geometry is, of course, all through the universe, and it's in fields, it's in waves and vibrations. But we live in a beautiful sacred geometric space. And oftentimes, when you see light ships or people that have a glowing, pulsing circular ship that they filmed, it will sometimes look like a Merkaba or a Merkaba shape that's spinning. And this is another form of that sacred geometry mechanism in which these spirits reside, because for them it can also be used as a tool, a physical tool, in order to enter the third dimension and to communicate, because their bodies are made of spirit light. And so only we can exist in this dimension. This is so important for them to have an exchange with you. Do you want to go ahead and finish what you were saying, that you went home and you felt healed? I just had to mention that because
Yeah, no,
they
I
always,
appreciate that because that was like that night. I didn't sleep what you would think I would sleep like a rock, but I was kind of in and out and I was like I just had this it's like let it like I felt like I let a bunch of past stuff go at
yeah,
Mount
that's
Shasta.
so beautiful.
It
That's
just
so beautiful.
yeah, that's what it felt like is exactly what you're talking about. I was just like, I just felt this release.
Yeah,
You're making
how did you
space.
manage to like not drown yourself in tears? When that happened
Yeah.
to me, I was just a waterfall of tears. It just was a total release,
Yeah.
and it was life changing. So on the next day, when you went back, did you have a deeper, more meaningful contact?
So the next day we went to is it Castle Craig's with the Heart Lake Trail? So
Um, yeah, yeah.
we were at Heart
Past
Lake.
Castle Lake, you go. You
Yes.
have to get to Castle Lake and travel around Castle Lake to get to Heart Lake. So yes, let me point out, this is not a simple hike.
No,
Going to Castle Lake and hiking around that is a mouthful of its own.
right.
And to get to Heart Lake, you're going up over a ridge again. So there's significant elevation change. And at the beginning of this, it's all freaking uphill.
It is all uphill, but I totally forgot. What we did first in the morning is we went to the Gateway Peace Garden and we were completely alone. Like there was no one there. And because I think we got there at like 7:15 in the morning. And we we did the what is the walking path? I'm spacing the
There's
name.
a labyrinth there in the
Yeah, the
middle of it.
labyrinth. So we did the labyrinth, and we were getting the light from Mount Shasta like peeking through. And that one was really good. But then there was one that was surrounded by alpine trees. It was the most like we were like, oh, like the energy in that space, both of us were like, we didn't even, that one and the Buddha one really spoke to both of us. But we did quite a bit in that area, and then we went back to that one with the alpine trees. I don't even know who the person is on the picture. Like, I don't even know who that is, but we just felt so powerful that we sat and meditated in that circular space surrounded by the alpine trees. And it was
Yeah, when I meet with people, that's where we start our day. And now you know why.
it's incredible. Like,
Yeah.
all of it was amazing, but there was something about that space in particular.
I like to call it grounded connection. Because once you get in there, you're going to find a layer somewhere in here. You're just so peaceful that there's your grounding. And
Right.
then you're triggered before you leave, though, because you get hit in some section by some energy there. And it couldn't be more malevolent is really the best term, I guess. Peaceful, serene. It's you can't go out of there.
Right.
It's just I've never been in there when I've heard any commotion. Like people enter there, and I've seen kids in there.
Yeah.
It's just they feel that energy and they just want to kind of get into it. It's wonderful.
Yeah, we didn't want to talk. We ended up just going back and sitting, and we were probably there. I mean, we were probably at the garden, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half. And we were completely alone. Not one person came in. And then right after that, we drove right to Castle Crags and did the Heart Lake Trail. And we went all the way around the Heart and climbed onto those rocks so that we could overlook Mount Shasta and the lake. And we sat there meditating for quite a bit. We were there for a while, just the energy was so intense. That
I
was
like
Jeff's
I like
favorite.
how you can't recall how much time you spent there.
It
You
was that's
know,
it. It's
yep.
like yeah, we have no idea how long we were there. We were like, and that's why I was like, we compressed time in 2 days because we were meditating in the garden, the Peace Garden. We were meditating at Heart Lake. We went back to, and then we did it's a long, like you said, that's a solid hike.
Yeah. Let me just give some clarity to people that are going to hear this.
Yeah.
You called them Castle Crags. Where you went was not Castle Crags. That is another piece down I-5 a little bit. And those that you see them from the road, they're tens of thousands of years have been. Where you went was Castle Lake in
Sorry.
that
Yes.
area. No,
Yeah.
no, no. I
Yeah.
just want people, if they want to
No.
go where you went, we don't want to
Right.
send
Yeah.
them in the wrong direction.
That path, to Heart Lake, it's an intense hike for sure. It was good, but being able to like get around and get on those rocks and then overlook the lake and Mount Shasta, because I had seen pictures and I was like, I know you can see Mount Shasta from here. I was like, we have to go over there. I was like, I have to go over there. So we found the path and then climbed up on those rocks. And I'm not like the greatest climber, but whatever. I had no problems. Do you know what I mean?
It's
And
like you're compelled to go
right,
see that. Once you see it in a picture and it's triggered you, I need to put my feet here where the photographer stood.
right. And we were really good when we were at Bunny Bluffs or Bunny Flats. We took off our shoes and grounded there, and we grounded at Heart Lake. And so we were like, and then after that, we went back for a little bit, had some lunch, and we went to McCloud Falls. We did the three. We started at the top because we didn't know where really we
Oh
were
my
going.
God.
So we started at the upper falls and we walked to the middle falls, to the lower falls, put our feet in the water there and on those rocks. It's icy cold, it's freezing cold, but it felt really great. And then we hiked back up to the upper falls. It was that was the day. It was like by the end of that, we were toast. We were
Let me
like,
ask you a question.
yeah,
On your way to the upper falls, I know where you park to get there, and then
yeah.
you start to hike up. Did you feel an energy change along the path there? Because you walked right by a door to tell us.
I'm trying, like the whole thing was so powerful to me that I was like, and I'm picturing if there's some, I'm going to say where I think it is, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. But I was like, so we started at the upper falls and we're heading down to the middle falls, and there's a wall.
Oh, okay. You start from the very top and made your way down. Okay, got it.
We went down and then we went from the bottom up
Okay.
again. So we did both ways. So I'm thinking there's a wall of rocks to one side. So that's what I am picturing in my head as that doorway, but maybe it's like I
Nope,
didn't really think
that's the
about it.
spot. If
Yeah.
you'd have stopped to examine it, you'd have looked at a rock on that complex and go, damn, that looks like a door. And
Oh,
then you
yeah.
begin to see the guardians around it, and you find some other anomalies
Yeah.
in this thing that looks intentional. It doesn't look like, because of the design of this rock, it wasn't natural. Anyway.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, by the end of that, we were exhausted. Do you know what I mean? By the time we got to our car, we were like, oh my God. And we stopped and got some food and just went back to the Airbnb. And there was no way we could make it back to Bunny Flat. We just didn't have it in us. But like that second day we hiked, it was like 27,000 steps. The first day was like 20,500 and
Yeah.
mainly hiking. But interestingly enough, after we ate dinner, we walked downtown. Like we had the energy to like walk downtown and just kind of and I'm like, I can't believe we have it in us to walk. Like we just
Your
had,
legs should have been jelly.
yeah, we should have been toast. And it was like
Mm-hmm.
we had and I'm like, how do we have this energy? It was amazing. And what I forgot to tell you is on the first day, we went to this one shop, and I have so many crystals, right? I'm like, I'm not buying any more crystals. Like I don't need another crystal. So we're in the shop and we're talking to this woman, and they have a tree in there that's it's like a memorial for people who have lost somebody special. And so it's this beautiful tree, and there's and they create like concoctions. I can't remember the name of it.
I know exactly the place you're talking about.
You do.
It belonged to a really close friend of mine. That tree has been in the middle of that store forever. And
Oh,
if you look at a lot of the other artifacts that are in there, some of those things are tens of thousands of years old. But yes, they create these scented potions. That's a thing that they did.
yeah.
Um, uh, that's Heather.
It was
Heather.
so we met the daughter of the store owner, and she was talking to us, and they had some Andaras like in a case, and I was like, "Oh, those are pretty." Like, didn't I was like, "They're beautiful," but and my friend was kind of like interested in one, and then I don't know, we were in the case where we were checking out. We bought a few little things, and I had looked at this. I was like talking to the woman. I'm like, oh, let's see this ring. I was just like, we were just chatting. And right next to it was this Andara that was almost black. Like I didn't even see it. So I was in that case looking, and I was like, oh, and my friend Jess was there. And then Jess was checking out. And I was like, wait, what's that? And it was this. And I couldn't even
Whoa.
see it. I couldn't see it. And then all of a sudden, it was like my eyes like I don't even know how I saw it because it was like hidden in this very dark case. And it's basically, it's not black, but it looks black in
It
darkness
looks at Atlantean blue from, well,
from
no,
you.
I see. No.
There's like an alien face right here, and it's fascinating. But I couldn't even see it. And then I had been standing at that case for, let's say, 15 minutes. And then as we were checking out, I just went like that. And I was like, what's that? And she was like, I haven't even priced it yet. It doesn't want to be in the case with the other ones or something like that. And I was like,
No, they do not like to be idle. They're supposed to be at work. Let you get the idea. We steward those things and they call us. That was no coincidence that
I
that got your attention.
I was like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it wasn't, I wasn't looking for a crystal. I was like, I'm not buying any crystals. I've got enough. Like, I'm like, and my head just went, and I'm like, what is that? And I held it and I'm like, okay, I gotta take this home. You know what I mean? And I can't believe I bought it, but it was I have no regrets. Do you know what I mean? It's like no regrets at all. But it was
Mhm.
just one of those things where I was just, it drew me to it. And that's what I laugh. I'm like, in my book, I was like, the crystals pick you. And it's so true.
She'll reveal her name too soon.
Yes. Yeah. It's like it was, but I've been meditating with it every day. And I'm mesmerized
Just
by it.
remember, your connection like that's an exchange. So she has things she's definitely charged to share with you, but you are going to share some of your little kosh with it as well. And it all gets stored right there in that little, sentient critter. And wow, that's very powerful.
It was.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then that night we just, because our Airbnb, you could see Mount Shasta from the front deck. So we just sat out there for hours, and then I couldn't sleep that night. You would think I'd sleep, but I was up at 1:30 in the morning. Did
That's when you're supposed to stargaze.
Yeah. Well, I did. I went outside and sat on that deck, and we could see Venus like prominently in front of us. And we just waited there until the sun rose. And then, like, we watched it
Wow.
until we couldn't see Mount Shasta anymore, went to bed, and then woke up and watched it as long as we could. We had to leave by 6 a.m. that morning to head to
Mm.
Sacramento. So it was an intense few days. But I have to tell you, I have been exhausted since, but I wasn't sore physically. I've had no, like, I have something going on with my right knee. I didn't feel a thing. Like I was totally fine with all of it. Could have kept
I
the next day.
I like asking about the physical conditions there because that was the one thing when I go there that is most um, I'm most aware of.
Yeah,
I'm not a young guy anymore, but I hike in the same way that you do, and the outcome is exactly the way that you described it.
right.
Yeah, it's like we went and we trekked and trekked and trekked and trekked uphill. A lot of the, I mean, it was taxing on your little carbon body,
Yeah,
but somehow there was an energy source that kind of just pushed you past all that. And
right.
even there was no residue left. So when you say, yeah, it's like riding a bike when you're saddle sore, there's none of that. No
Right.
hiking fatigue. It's amazing.
I had none. Like beyond at the end, we were tired, like just I think it was more mentally that we were tired, not physically. Like, absorbing all of that energy, but then we couldn't sleep. Do you know what I mean? Like we weren't sleeping. We were like,
you're there is a part of us that until you really get into those environments, we ignore largely the metaphysical side of us. So while you're physical body is enjoying the outdoors and the things that it benefits from, all of a sudden that part that you're talking about that kind of opened up and woke up, and um, you had some healing and you did some purging. Believe me, you're in touch with something greater than yourself. I call it light. That's what it is. There's a few versions of what light is, but the good news is that you've been triggered by it. And now you know that that field around me that feels things beyond my five senses. I am totally in touch with it.
Right.
And so this is what I got to carry away from Shasta and carry the realization of that everywhere I go now. But you just want to go back to it, don't you?
I know, I know. I was like, when I flew back, I was like, oh my gosh, that was a long travel. I'm not going to go back. And then I'm like, okay, when can I go back? And Sedona is like that for me too. I went to Sedona twice
True.
last year. And
Yes. There's a reason for that.
yeah,
Um, that has more to do with understanding, the length and breadth of Lemuria a long time ago. Because, Telos under Shasta, yes, is reminiscent of what we know about the Lemurians, but all of Lemuria, when it broke off, covered the western part of the United States and down toward Mexico. The whole landmass was different back then. Sedona, certainly, it's part of what Telos was. This is the city of Telos under Shasta. But Telos was an area, and Sedona was very much part of it. That's why people that go to the different areas, where there's an energetic vibe in both places that's just that way.
yeah,
I see Sedona as being like, I grew up in the Twin Cities in Minnesota.
yeah,
So I equate it to like Minneapolis and St. Paul, where Minneapolis is the Sedona, and it's kind of hip, and it's, there's a vibe there, and it's kind of upbeat. And then St. Paul is the conservative, grounded, that kind of energy. That's Shasta, like the mothership. That's how I see my way of explaining that the nature of these energies.
yeah. And I didn't get to see, like I said, I've been studying Mount Shasta for like four and a half years. I didn't get to see any lenticular clouds, but I knew that's not really the time for them there. We did see some clouds at the top, and I swear I saw something at one of the peaks. I was like, but it's like, and then it was just, we just would sit and stare at it in
I
the
don't know if there's a season for those, because you got to understand what I know them to be.
right,
It's not a weather phenomenon so much
right.
as it's a shroud. Anyway,
That's what I
it's
had.
better off.
Yeah,
We want to see the sky. And
right.
you were there during a relatively, low, bright moon environment. There
Right.
were two, when I went there the first time for the 5 weeks. I spent many nights up at the top parking lot up there looking at the sky, because zero light pollution.
Right.
And you could see everything great. The first part of when I was there had no frame of reference. The moon was full and bright. And so that was beautiful in itself. And you could see the other constellations, in the other direction. But when on the new moons, wow, what you could see in the Milky Way with no moonshine influence was a whole different sky to appreciate. I just want to go there to do that overnight.
Yeah. It was an incredible experience. I feel like both Jess and I are still absorbing everything, and I think it'll take a while. Like I think Dave said, it's going to be a little bit of time, but it was definitely worth the experience. And of course, I want to go back. And I was like, I said, I'm like, I'm flying home, and it's a long day of travel, and we should have built in some just integration time just to, but I don't think we would have. I think we would have gone to like, there's what is it called? I think it's a mountain made out of obsidian. Um
Yeah, Glass Mountain.
Glass Mountain. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
Medicine
not
Lake.
that easy to find, but I
Yeah.
did. It's off track. There's the road that connects I-5 to Lassen. I don't know the number of it, but if you follow that out far enough, there's a place where it comes back into the Shasta Trinity Forest to your left. Well, you follow that road 28 miles, you'll find Glass Mountain,
Oh,
but
wow.
it's on no map, and connectivity out there is dicey to say the least. How I found it, honestly, was crazy, but I needed to see an entire mountain of obsidian, and I saw it.
Yeah. And the other thing I forgot to, when we were driving into Mount Shasta from Sacramento, after we landed and we were driving in, Butte, is it Butte?
Black Butte.
Black Butte. Whoa. That looked ominous as we were driving in. It was black. And we were like, I'm like, I know what that is because of all I've done so much research in that area. Have you gone to Pluto's cave?
Many times.
I wanted to go there too.
Well, that'll be the next time.
Yeah. That's all. I have a lot on the list to see, but Black Butte was fascinating.
What do you think that is? When you look at it, what do you think it is? And I'll give you my perspective.
It doesn't look real, does it? It's like so perfectly triangular, maybe pyramid. I was like, because
You're
it's so,
close.
yeah, it's so
Here's how I see it. The
perfect.
very first time I drove by it,
Yeah.
it looked like the tip of a crystal. And a
Yeah.
crystal that big, look at it, and all it has is all that scree. If you could just brush that away, you would see the crystal. So I climbed to the top of that alone. Foolish. Don't do it. I'm not suggesting that anybody does. That
Yeah.
was a foolish thing for me. That hike took 6 hours, and it took
Wow.
me longer to get down than it took me to get up.
Yeah.
However,
Super
um,
steep, right? Yeah.
yeah, there's no real trail. It's just scree as slippery rock. That's
Right.
all that mountain is, and that's why it looks the way that it does. The views as you're going up is amazing, but it's dangerous.
Yeah.
At the top, there used to be a lookout station, and you can see some of the cables and the hooks that are left from that up there, but you had to get all the way to the top to see it. Um, I believe that it's some type of huge amplifier for the energy that the mountain puts out. And that's the purpose that it serves.
Yeah. It was black driving in. When we were driving in, it looked so ominous. And then as we were on Mount Shasta and we could see it, it looked during the day, it looked calmer, but it was like the energy that it shot out when we were driving in was super intense. We could feel it. And I was just like mesmerized by it. So that is all. That's it. Just a simple little trip to Mount Shasta. No big deal.
Super, super share there, Christine. I really am honored to listen to your story. Your words have, your words are true. And so, in your journeys, when you head back there, I always think that when I go to sacred places, because of the experience of being in a sacred place, I can always bring that sacred place with me now wherever I go. See, because there's some form of deep spiritual exchange that occurs. It's like visiting a place and never forgetting it because it was just so awe-inspiring. I guess I do have one question. I have two questions. The first question is, when you return home, did you have sort of a sartori or a higher feeling about the way you have a relationship with your son and your home life? Do you have a different approach to the way you live now in your home after your visit? And then the second question was, um, did you receive a message later, like a week or 2 or 3 weeks later, or days later after you returned? Because oftentimes, what I've found just from my experience and listening to others is that when we communicate or we're communicated to, they oftentimes leave a little package of information deep inside of your mind that reveals itself either all at once, like an idea, or in stages. So it makes you more curious about your own experience. So I'm just wondering those two things because I know that everybody has some sort of after effect of the miracle of being treated to what you experienced.
So I've only been home for 3 days.
Great.
So it's pretty fresh. Honestly, I have been physically, I haven't, uh, interestingly enough, this is going to sound so 3D, but we had new carpet put in to our upper level of our home the week before I left for Mount Shasta. So all of a lot of stuff is still downstairs that needs to be reorganized or gotten rid of.
Great. So there's a great opportunity to feng shui.
Exactly. Like it was like we're still in that mode. As far as my home, and I have three children. I have 22, 20, and 17.
Oh,
So
great.
yeah, my
Babies
daughter,
having babies.
yeah, it's like exactly 17. She's my daughter is 17 years old and a senior in high school, and I've only been home a few days. So the part about my home life and moving forward, not sure yet, but I'll get back to you on that one. As far as messages go, I feel like this was a continuation of the journey that I've been on since I got those Andara crystals in 2012. And I needed to like I said, I'm like, I have been mapping out the city of Telos in my mind. Like I can see I'm in my office right now, but I have it all drawn out. And some people say five. In my mind, I see seven. But the upper and lower in those seven are more like the light crystal and almost like the lower cave system
Well,
down.
it's no wonder that humankind has developed the concept of chakras. You know, the
Right.
seven chakras. So,
Seven chakras. In my mind, I see the seven. And like I
right.
said, I have a huge journey in front of me because I have been given this this project that I need to do, which is the 7 books on each main. So I've written book one, and which is the first chakra at Mount Shasta, California. But I went back and I've like updated it with just more world building and adding a Dhamma into it. And the purpose of my writing from this journey I've been given is not so I can be a world famous author, but to bring this information to younger people so that they get it sooner than I did, or sooner, it's like, so, and it's just to spark their creativity and spark the interest, and hopefully that they'll do it on their own and find their own path. It's not for me to tell them what to do, but it's just spark in my hopes as I'm planting the seeds about chakras, meditations, inner earth cities.
That's a very worthy and noble gesture. Absolutely, continue with that. That's so important.
So
And
I,
Here is
yeah,
why, when I decided I was going to be this kind of talking head and do these podcasts, it was so that people like Christine, who was an accountant and thought that was what she was, all of a sudden was compelled to write a book. So here, compare this to the synchronicities with my other friend Paula here, who hasn't chimed in yet. However, ask Paula what she did before she thought she was supposed to write a book about inner earth.
yeah,
You see where your paths parallel? How did that happen to her? Because she was not a writer
right.
before that. And when she got to the end of the book, waiting for the reality of inner earth to show up, that's when I showed up.
Yeah. And the second book that I've written, but I was lucky enough to get my rights back so I could update the first book. The second book is in Machu Picchu and Lake Titicaca, the second Earth chakra location, and the myths and the legends. And I'll just tell you this funny thing that coincidentally happened to me is I felt like the main character, who's like, she starts out as a 14-year-old girl and, journeys to the city of Telos first. And then she becomes this sentinel of the chakra stones. And the second book is in Machu Picchu and Lake Titicaca. But there's a myth about a golden coin. And I just thought it would be fun, like some sidebar, because my editor was like, Christine, you've got action after action. You need to give your readers like a little breathing space. And I'm like, okay. So I came up with this, like, where she gets this golden coin, right? And then later on, I'm doing this research, and there's a door right outside of Lake Titicaca. And the way to get into the gateway of the gods is through this coin that I had already written about 100. And I didn't know that there was that door with the coin, but that's why I feel like this is my journey.
Yeah,
And
it's ancient technology revealing itself to you. Yeah,
right,
you're getting the straight story from ancient reality. That's awesome.
And like the character in my book, one of them names was Alistair. And I didn't know this, but somebody's like, did you name him after Alistair Crowley? And I'm like, who's Alistair Crowley? And she's like, Christine, downloading all this stuff and you don't even know. And it's been years of this. So my goal, it's just a revitalization of that purpose that I need to get these books out. However I do it, whether I go through another publisher this time or I just self-publish like Lowell has told me to do. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And that's why I was like, when the publisher had their hands on it and they weren't doing anything, of course they get all the money. Do you know what I mean? But they don't have to spend, like, I'm like, if I'm going to be advertising it and trying to get it out, I might as well reap not that I'm looking for, I'm just saying, like, why would I give it all away? Do you know what I mean? Like,
right now, look, we still live in a dimension with density, and we need to use the energy resources that are available to us. Money is, we understand it to be energy, but that's what it is. So we're asked to be smart with it, and we are smart. So instead of giving it to everybody else who has marketed a way to get in front of my face in the first place, we have now understand that we have a command and a mastery over how to do these things ourselves. And the tools for us to do those have presented themselves. So I don't need to find a publisher. Although I had been approached by one when I first went to Sedona to, do a presentation in 2021. I had met my publisher. That's how she was introduced to me. And, we kind of walked the path along. And later, when things come out of me, you can ask Dave. He's been around when my data dumps come out.
Right.
And it's like, I just got to get all this information that's trying to get out of me. I got to get it down on paper. I got to get it done. And I'll go through like a 72-hour just before I stop, and it's done. But at the end, when you go back and look, holy cow, here's some more of the dots that have connected, and here's why. I always, when I look at the final product, I go, God, couldn't you line that up for me earlier? Anyway, I say that because now that you have put your experience down here in this format today, there's information you were supposed to get out of it. But when we're talking about the experience and we're the vessel, we don't hear ourselves and we're not really taking it in. So that's the beauty of doing these things and recording them, is the messages you were meant to get. We can go back and you can review for yourself as many times as you want. Never mind that it's going to benefit a lot of other people that have heard about Shasta, energy, vortexes, telos, Um, Everybody is waiting and hungry for the next piece of information they get from a real experiencer. So thank you for sharing.
Right. And I'm just going to add one more thing is like I had gone down the research of like the sons of Belial and the law of one from Lemuria and Atlantis. And I mean, that was years ago. And then, like, so the main bad guy is Nabal, and he's one of the last son of Belial, which is part of how the demise of Lemurian Atlantis went down. And I was like, and that was like a myth that I had found. But then I found you guys and I found all of these other people that have experienced that. And it's just,
The narrative fits.
yeah, it's just mesmerizing how that all came together. So when I was flying home, I've been distracted the last month and a half with 3D obligations, family, and that. But I was like, I'm more motivated to get it done and get it out there. And just like you said, just let it be. It's not to let it be and see
Welcome to dimension straddling. Now you've stepped into seeing things from a higher perspective because you're able to articulate about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful to be here and to meet you. And I was like, I'm bummed we didn't get to do that hike, but I feel like that wasn't supposed to
We
happen.
will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no, you'll be back and I'll be there.
Yeah.
Well, Paula, say something.
Hi, Lowell. Hi,
Hello.
everybody. Oh my gosh, I've just been enjoying this information so much. I've not been to Mount Shasta. In fact, I think hey Dave, by the way, how you doing?
Paula, really nice to see you.
Kind of see me. I took Lowell's suggestion and did finally put a photo up. I had to figure out how to do it, but
we see it. It's great. Did you just take it?
Oh yeah, I just took it just this very second. Yeah,
oh, wow.
I am no. I've been running around.
Kid, you look good.
I've been at the park. I've been hanging out. It's been that did not just take that photo. I found one though.
Wow.
Yeah, I loved your conversation. I feel like I was a part of it, even though I wasn't contributing. I was just sitting, just listening so carefully. It just sounds magical. I have never been to Shasta, but I'll be honest now that you shared your story. My gosh. I mean, I think the big takeaway for me is this something overcomes the body and just fills it with this light and this energy. And it feels like that light, you take it home with you. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you've kind of taken away from? I know you're just back for 3 days and you're still trying to decompress, but it feels like you took the light back with you and carried it home. Is that right?
I think you're right. Like the fact that I'm not sore, I'm mentally decompressing, but physically I'm really good. And you would think I'd be exhausted. But I do like just going through the pictures that I took and finding the geometric triangle or diamond shapes and the orbs and seeing like even in videos the way the light moves in Mount Shasta through some of the videos are like striking. And I do feel like there's more for me to understand, but I just need to settle into this time frame. But there's no regrets at all. My only regret is I didn't give it more time to be there. I compressed like it was almost too short. So it's like I'd give yourself a little more time to spend there because there's so much to absorb and see.
Yeah.
Now, Paula, are you from Massachusetts?
I am not from Massachusetts.
No. Okay.
I do have a connection to that. Why do you ask for Massachusetts?
I thought I had heard you talking one time and said you were from Massachusetts, but I think it might be somebody else. Yeah.
No, I was,
Okay.
I think I had to, I was visiting Massachusetts and I think I got onto a Zoom call. I got on
Oh,
our podcast with Lowell saying, "Hey, I'm in Massachusetts right now." I was settling my son back into school,
oh, okay.
helping
I
him
live in
with
New
that.
Hampshire. That's why I'm in New Hampshire.
Okay, you're
So I'm
close
close.
by.
Yeah. My
Okay.
son
Yeah, I have
lives in
another son in
Boston.
New York, so
Yeah. Yeah.
you're
So
what is in Boston?
my son lives in Boston. He graduated from college and he
Oh,
works.
my son lives in Cambridge.
Yeah, my son is in Somerville and works in Cambridge.
Oh,
Yeah, that's why I knew there was some kind of location
oh,
connection because I had heard you on a previous podcast.
yes, that's right. So our kids live right in the same little area there. That's
Area.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it
That's
is
really
cool.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like,
Yeah, wonderful.
yeah, I'm still absorbing all of this. Like I said, I'm super happy I got to talk to you guys about it because it helped me almost decompress it too. Like kind of I'm learning so much, but I've been on this journey for a long time and I got a long way to go.
Just hang in there. This
Yeah.
worked out much better than you and I just talking about your trip on the phone, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, look how many other people can benefit from it. So, Dave, what are your observations?
Uh, I don't really I don't really think that any of us have as much of the knowledge or answers as we crave. I think that you're right. I think this is an unfolding uh, learning experience. And the fact that you went to Shasta and only had 2 days, but had such an immense experience, my gut instinct with experiences like this is that a lot more information is going to come to you through some light implant or a download that you've been given. CLPT and CLPF doesn't work just from ships. I mean, you can get the light flash information system from an orb. But I think that the spiritual communion that occurred was very meaningful, almost as if you have just begun a more important aspect of your relationship with the spirit who loves you. And it's very interesting how things unfold. And I think that once you get through the second book that you're writing, then even though you probably see the whole picture, like you said, you see all of the Lemuria and the seven levels or the seven cities. I think that 2, 3, 4 years down the road, all of us are going to be changed somewhat more dramatically. I am hoping that whatever the experience takeaway is for all of us who are going forward is that we all become the version of ourselves that we were meant to be from the day we were born. And we're all very, very important souls. All humans have a very important role to play as messengers of compassion and to outreach to other souls who need to take that repose so that we can find the time to go on a little journey like you've done because it's so very important. So it's just my take on all of this is just that it's so nice to hear another legitimate soul. And the only way we can receive the truth is from hearing from personal experiences. And I would like to thank you for coming forward to speak about your experience because you're very brave. We live in a reality where people live in fear. And to break from that paradigm means that you will always have to now walk on this path of truth and light. And oh, isn't that awful?
Well,
Amen. And so I want to underscore that and demonstrate how Dave and I are always on the same frequency because I just nodded, I noted two things that I wanted to say here at the end. One, and I've had more and more appreciation over the last couple of days seeing attention from people that have went out, experiencers who got off their ass to go find their own truth. Thank you for being one. You didn't sit on this side of a Zoom screen and listen to somebody else and you told their story. You went out and found your truth for yourself. So thank you so much for doing that. It just contributes to the tribe of the things that we know. And Dave, thank you. Open the door for the next conversation we're going to have when he mentioned CLPT and CLPF.
Sure,
Thank you
no
very much.
problem. Yeah,
Mhm.
and it's been lovely to listen because we all know Data Dump Dave is usually flapping his jaw about something, but I really
You were
appreciate
pretty
the time.
reserved today.
Oh no, I always appreciate when I'm sitting in front of a divine feminine spirit, and I appreciate your clarity and the way you've been able to communicate your experience so effectively. I would think that most of us listening to this have been touched in some way. And I feel better for the time I've spent with you. So you're a wonderful soul and a beautiful spirit. And it's been lovely to sit and listen.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I'll just say one thing for future listeners, what I have read and heard, and I believe to be true, is that a lot of the communication does happen while you sleep as well. So before I go to bed, I do ask to be shown. And I heard it from who is the woman who speaks the light codes or the light language comes on.
Maya.
Yes. And so but I was like, it's funny, I have it in the book that there's night training that happens to my character, but I believe that to be true. So you can ask to be shown while you're sleeping the things that you need to understand and learn. And you don't have to be awake and focused on it all the time, that it will come to you. I believe that.
I agree with that 150,000%. Yes, that has been my personal experience as well. Thank you for sharing that with everybody. Hopefully, they'll become more aware of that for themselves if they aren't already. Thank you.
Thanks, Paula. Thank you.
Well, with that, I'm going to close this out because that's just a perfect ending. I will have this up in a couple of hours so it can be shared with others and so that we can all kind of listen to it again and get what we were supposed to get out of it. Thanks again. This won't be the last time we hear from one another, but
No,
thank you
I'll be
guys.
back on more frequently. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Namaste.